This is last video of CCNP 2.0 switch series. In this video, we will describe device security using Cisco IOS AAA with TACACS Plus in radius, AAA with TACACS Plus in radius, local privilege authorization fallback. So as we can see in blueprint of CCNP 2.0 switch, we just need to know about this topic. We don't need to bother a lot regarding configuration and verification. Additionally, we will implement AAA using local database. So first of all, let's discuss what is AAA and what is the use case of AAA. AAA stands for Authentication, Authorization and Accounting, which basically used to secure your infrastructure, like who can access network and network devices as well. Basically, it used to prevent unauthorized along with a granular control over a particular user. What is mean by to say this? Let's say in this diagram, as we can see, I have a 3 switch and we have a user connected right there. We want to allow remote access on these switches, for example, switch 1. If we enable telnet on this switch, what happen? Any person connected to your network, if they know the password of telnet, they can do everything. Means they can do anything. They can reconfigure your device, they can delete your VLAN data, either whatever they want. But in some cases, we want to assign particular command to specific user so that we can control particular user to do particular task. So let's say, for example, we have a user A and we want to assign a command like user A only allowed to see interface status. Then A will told to you there is some sorts of problem, and since you are the admin or you are the super user, then after you can change whatever problem is. So sometime you may have some user that you want to, they can only monitor network devices or network problem, and then after they let you know. Because of that, you don't want to allow that particular user to do everything. In such case, we can enable AAA, which is authentication, authorization and accounting. And there is two different way to implement AAA. The first one is what? AAA using local database. That basically means your username and command assignment will be locally significant or on every device. So whatever user we created, let's say user A on switch 1, that is locally significant for switch 1. If we want to do same thing on switch 2, we need to go through manually and do on switch 2 as well as switch 3 or every device which is connected inside your network. So AAA can be implemented on switch, router as well, but we can see it is locally significant only. It basically means when you add a special user B, a new user B, then again you need to go through every device to add user B. Likewise, you want to add particular command to user B, again you need to go to every device to allow particular command to every device. So that is not convenient every time. In such case, what we can do, we can use AAA using centralized database, either Radius or TACACS Plus, which is Cisco proprietary protocol or a Cisco proprietary software even, I should say, that allow assignment particular user to particular command. So let's see what happen if you have a server. Then you have a centralized database, means you need to create user out this server, you modify command out this server, it automatically it's actually not reflect. Then let me explain how actually AAA works. First of all, so this is a topology that we can see here. This is user who want to configure this switch or who want to access this switch. It could be via telnet or it could be via console as well. Then first PC need to send a request to switch that I want to take telnet. and switch will send that query or that request to AAA server, which is running a special software, could be Radius or a TACACS Plus. So it could be run on Windows box, Linux box as well. So whatever configuration is available on your server, based on that you may allow or may not. So first you need to authenticate, and once you authenticate it, now the next problem is what command allowed to execute by user A, which is also known as authorization. Maybe you are authorized to run command, let's see, so run. It also keeps the history or whatever command executed by particular user, in this case user A, so that later we can see user executed this command. So then after we can take decision for accounting or for some other reason. So this is how your AAA centralized server work. So basically that we need to know what is a AAA and how it actually affect inside our network. So let me discuss how we can implement AAA using local database. In case of local database, your username and your command assignment will be locally significant, as I told you earlier. So you need to do on every device. So in this case, we need to assign privilege level for user for granular control or a modular control out every user. For example, let me first enable telnet on my switch 1 or a switch 2. So to do this, I would like to switch to my CLI. I have a switch 2 running and switch 1 as well. And first of all, I would like to show version include only iOS. So this is the iOS which I am running on my switch. Switch is 2960 and 12.2. This is the iOS. So first of all, let me assign IP address. For example, I have a VLAN 1, interface VLAN 1, I should say 2.100, 255.255.255.0 and no shutdown. And once we assign IP address, now we can enable telnet like line v-30 and then how many user you want to allow to simultaneously access your devices via v-30. In this case, I am going to use 0 to 5, which basically means 6 user. And then after, let's say password is Cisco. And ask password at time of login. So now let's check whether we do have a connectivity to my Windows box. So this is my laptop where I'm recording video as well. So first of all, would like to check whether we do have a connectivity to switch. So this is the IP address 192.168.2.100, and as we can see, we do have. Now next task is what? Let's go through the telnet 192.168.2.100. As we can see, it asks for password only. So once you enable password, now we can have everything allowed to do on this switch. So basically enable password is not configured yet. Because of that, we do not have enable password, excuse me, and then Cisco. Once we enable password, configure terminal. Now user can do anything, whatever he or she want. But in this case, we want to get a granular control over every user. Means user can execute command A, B, C or a Z, whatever we want. So in that case, we need to enable AAA. So basically, we can also create a username. Let's say in this case, I'm going to do it on switch number 2. So this is there is no configuration running on switch 2. First of all, interface VLAN number 1 and then IP address 192.168.2.200 since it is switch 2. So the IP address is arbitrary, no cert, and then after we're going to create a username. Name of user is, let's say, Aditya, and then password of user is Cisco. Obviously, we can specify particular privilege, and let's say discuss privilege first. In case of use local database, first you need to understand what is Cisco IOS privilege. So basically, we have some default privilege which is already applied on your Cisco IOS. Privilege 0, we do not have any accessibility. What I mean to say that if we have any user, we assign privilege 0, that user cannot do anything. And privilege 1, which is also known as user mode or user exec. On user exec, every user have very limited access, or they can monitor whatever is running, or they can see whatever is running inside the devices. Likewise, we have a privilege 15 which allow to do everything. So we have 0 to 15 which is 16, but by default privilege 1 and 15 used. Privilege 2 to 14 are not used. That we can assign to particular user, and based on that privilege we can assign particular command as well, or we can associate particular command as well. So let's say that we can assign user for a specific task or a command. So let's say we're going to create a user along with assign a privilege as well. Switch to username Aditya, password is Cisco, and then after we also want to assign privilege which is, let's say, 5. So you can see where you working actually. So privilege, there is a command which shows. So privilege, excuse me, as we can see currently we working on privilege 15. Likewise, we can see on user exec level as well, excuse me, user mode as well, what is the privilege level using the same command, but in this time I'm not going to do that thing. So username privilege is this, and then we want to allow line VTY 0 to 5 login local. That basically means use local database in order to access telnet. So username will be Aditya and password will be Cisco. And notice that what I have assigned so far for Aditya, nothing, only the privilege. So what happened, let me first exit out, and then now it should go through. Yes, there we go. Username is Aditya, then password was Cisco. We can see what privilege we currently using. It is privilege 5. Alright, then what we can do, let's see if you want to show run. We are not able to execute that command because my privilege is 5. That basically means we can run command from 0 to 5. We cannot run any command which is belong to privilege level 15. And to show running configuration, it is command of privilege level 15. So basically what we can do on privilege level 5, which is the customize or user defined privilege, we can assign particular command as well. So as we can see currently we are not able to take to see the running configuration because our privilege is 5. So let me assign a command for this user as well. So there is a command that we can use, privilege, and then we need to define on which configuration mode, like exec, configuration, and then after level in line of command. For example, the command is privilege, excuse me, privilege, and this time this is exec. For level 5, we want to assign a command do so, so run. Now once we assign command so run, now user can execute that command as we can see. But also notice that since we not allowed to see all the configuration, we can see only the configuration size and some other thing. Basically, we cannot do, like say, let's say we want to go to the global configuration, we cannot. So same command we can also assign. For privilege, we can run command config terminal. So now we can hop over to the global. And if you want to show, hopefully do show privilege. I don't think it run right there, or a show privilege. Show command is not allowed. So because of that, we are not able to see. Similarly, we can assign command on configure level as well. So rather than exec, we can use this uh, much number of options that we can have. For basically, we want to configure, and then after configure, we are allowed to do changes in spanning tree. Let's say SPANNING, and then after tree. Before do this, let's see whether we have already accessibility to run this command spanning tree. So if we ask for what command we allow to do, we can allow some default command like beep default and so on. So you need to specify what command is allowed to execute, excuse me, configure, and then after level 5, then command is spanning, and then after tree. Now we can see we have one more command which allow to execute spanning tree that we can use. Likewise for VLAN. So we can do VLAN modification and whatever we want. So once we need to allow parent command, rest of sub command or a child command will allow. But as we can see, it is little bit difficult. So because of that, better to configure your AAA on particular box which is running a special software like TACACS Plus or a Radius. In that case, you will get a GUI interface, so that will become very easy to configure particular command to user. So this is the locally significant only, and as we can see, this is a problem. What is the problem? We need to create username out every device. We need to assign particular command out every device. So if you have a 10 or 100 of devices, you need to do 10 or 100 times. So that is not possible every time. So better we can have a centralized server, which is TACACS Plus or a Radius. So let's say how we can enable your device to support or to forward that query to TACACS Plus or a Radius. So Radius is a centralized management of user to access network. Could be via telnet, via SSH. In fact, it could be VPN as well in case of router. Whenever user attempts to log in, it verifies by AAA database whether you are the right user or not. Likewise, user management done on AA database without need to reconfigure each device every time. You just need to changes whatever you want on centralized database, which is TACACS Plus or a Radius. AAA can also control connection passing through switch or a router for access network resources. Like using AAA, you can allow who can connect with the network, like one dot access security. AAA can be Radius or TACACS Plus where database located, which is running on Windows or Linux box. And it also need to configure local as a fallback. What is mean by this line? If you told your devices, please every time send query whenever any user want to attempt to take access over telnet or a console. You need to forward query to your centralized database. What happen if your centralized database is unavailable or down? In this case, you may not able to log in this device. That basically means you cannot do anything because your access server, TACACS Plus server or Radius server is down. On that case, you also need to configure your devices. If TACACS server or Radius server is not available or not reachable, please use local database in order to troubleshoot or configure your devices. So that can be perform either switch or a router to forward the query to TACACS server or Radius server. And there is three basic services offered by AAA, which known as authentication, like which used to verify who are you the right person or not. Authorization, after authentication, it checks what command is allowed to execute for a specific user on a specific device. And finally we have accounting, used to collect or used to store information of user login or whatever command is executed or whatever configuration changed by particular user. So that can be used for verification, like who changes this configuration and so on. So in documents, I have already mentioned the characteristics of TACACS Plus in Radius. What are the difference between TACACS Plus and Radius? TACACS Plus is a Cisco proprietary, but Radius is a open standard. But if we're talking about granular control over a user, you should go through TACACS Plus, because Radius allow only authentication and allow what network resources you can access, but it not allow what command you can execute. So we have a proprietary which is TACACS Plus, which allow user A command XYZ, user B command 123 and so on so forth. How we can do this? So this is your device. You need to configure your device so that it forward query to a centralized server. To do this, we need to execute couples of tasks. First, we need to assign. First, we need to enable that your device support AAA using command AAA new model. So currently, we didn't enable that, and then after for fallback, we need to create a user which is significant, which is locally significant. If TACACS server is not available or Radius server is not available, on that time this database or this username and password will be used. Not similarly, again we need to do what we need to do. We need to execute this command, means for adding TACACS Plus or Radius server. So you may have a more than one server. For redundancy, you need to add. So we can add using two different way. So in the first way, as we can see, it support IPv4, IPv6, and second way, it support only IPv4. So you have both of option. You can go through it. Obviously, we need to create group of that server, because you may have a server 1, server 2, server 3, and server X. So you need to specify particular group so that your device send that message to group. On whatever server is running, it respond the query or it respond the request, whatever is done during attempting of user. Step number 5. Then we need to enable AAA authentication local. At time of login, we're going to use AAA. And this is the default list or list which we need to create. What is the list actually? First, you need to talk to the Radius server. If Radius server fail, then you need to talk to the TACACS server. If TACACS server fail, then you need to talk to, or you need to use local database as well. So you can define list on first time, or first we'll prefer this database, second we'll prefer this database, and finally we should have something as a fallback. So as I told you earlier, we can enable it not only for login, we can also enable for security like .1x as well. In 1x, basically we allow who can access a network or who can connect with network. At time of connecting your devices with network, you need to enter username and password, and then after you will able to connect. So, and then basically we need to enable it on which interface, on which line it should be done or it should be checked. So it could be your VTY line, it could be console as well. So obviously you can enable AAA on console port as well. If someone connecting through console, again it checks for username, password, and what command is authorized. So I'm not going to do, or I'm not going to execute every command right there, but yes, we can do it using your CLI. So let's say one more thing I would like to show you. So if we switch to line VTY 0 to 5, and these are the command that we can execute. Excuse me, there is a login. First I would like to show you login, and we have only login local because so far we didn't enable AAA to use, not AAA, I should say AAA listing or AAA method. So how we can enable it? By executing command AAA new model. So once I enable AAA new model command, now you can see login authentication rather than login local. So once we enable AAA new model, which basically means we're telling to our device, please use AA model, or basically means now you can use Radius server or TACACS plus. But currently we didn't configure Radius server and TACACS plus so that it send query to Radius server and TACACS plus. Additionally, we can do it. So these are the command that we can execute on devices in order to verify user command, user password, and all through TACACS plus or Radius server. In this video, this is all.